The One Big Beautiful Bill has now become the One Big Beautiful Act after being passed by both Senate and House of Representatives and receiving assent by President Donald Trump on 4th of July 2025. Hello and welcome to Drishti IAS. My name is Saloni Nankyolier, and in this video, we will look at the key highlights of this act and what is their relevance in the global scenario. So this One Big Beautiful Bill was actually a massive 940-page legislation which focused on almost every area of public policy. So it had tax reforms, medical, health insurance, defense sector, social sector and welfare schemes covered in it. And signing it on 4th of July is also symbolic in itself because 4th of July is the date when America celebrates its Independence Day. So President Trump, he provided his assent to the bill on 4th of July and now this bill has become an act. If we look at the key provisions of this act, so the first and foremost, the most important highlight here is the permanent tax cuts that have been introduced. So there were some tax cuts that Trump had introduced in 2017 in his first presidential regime, and the expiration date for these tax cuts was set at 2025. Now with this act, this expiration date has been done away with and the tax reforms have been made permanent in nature. These tax cuts are now permanent. And these tax cuts will benefit the wealthy, small business owners and senior citizens the most. Why do we say that this is going to benefit the wealthy people most? Because there is something known as the estate tax. Estate tax is a tax that the wealthy people used to pay when they transferred their property to their heir. The cap on this tax was $13 million per person. And now this cap has been increased to $15 million per person. So naturally, a lot of people are going to fall out of this bracket now. They will not be paying this estate tax. So this tax cut, because of these kind of tax cuts, this is going to benefit wealthy people the most. Then we have the child tax credit, which has been increased from $2,000 to $2,200. So there was a credit program that America was running to encourage American couples to have more children. So per child, there was a tax credit that was provided to couples. And earlier it was $2,000, which has now been increased to $2,200. Then there are some new deductions that have come up. For example, on tips. So earlier the waiters, the tips that they used to get, they had to pay a tax on that. Every overtime a worker did, they had to pay a tax on that. Now all these taxes have been done away with, which means there is no tax that's going to be levied on any type of overtime, any type of tip or any auto loans, and the senior citizen incomes under $75,000 will also not be taxable. Then another thing that has happened is that there's a clean energy cut, which tells us that Trump was not very keen on introducing any climate sector reforms because he has done away with all forms of electric vehicle subsidies. Earlier, for people purchasing electrical vehicles, there used to be some sort of subsidy. But now for any electrical vehicle, even if it is being manufactured in America, there is not going to be any subsidy provided on those vehicles. And the greenhouse gas reduction fund has been completely shut down. So there was this fund that used to provide loan and credit to clean energy projects, to green energy projects. Now this fund has been completely eliminated, which means all the ongoing community clean energy projects will now face a loss of funding. And the future projects will not be like future investors will not be encouraged to invest in any sort of clean energy funds. So this is something that has happened in this bill. Immigration and defense were his main priorities because the defense sector spending, it has been increased by $150 million on the over an existing $886 million. So the total has now increased $1 trillion, and this has happened only for the second time in US history. This tells us how important is the defense sector right now for US and how critically US is investing in that sector. Then if we talk about immigration, so immigration also a lot of things have changed because this government is focusing on something known as expedited removal. So expedited or fast removal, fast deportation of immigrants will happen where approximately 1 million people will be deported every year. So this government is very, very serious on immigration. They are focusing on getting immigrants back to their native countries and moving them out of America. In fact, they're strengthening the border. The border of Mexico and US is also being strengthened. under this bill, deportation is a big thing and missile defense is also on US's mind. Then Medicaid changes have been introduced. This is a controversial provision of this act because now work requirements have been introduced, like 20 plus hours of work per week. Any person who's working less than 20 hours per week will not be eligible for a health insurance. So naturally, a lot of people are now going to lose their medical coverage, their health insurance, and this is going to affect the low and middle income people, the vulnerable section of the society the most, because the wealthy people anyway can afford their health care, but this is going to affect the vulnerable section the most. Then there is something else that's happened. So SNAP or food coupons were given to workers. Now the eligibility for this has also increased for the working eligibility, working hours for this has also been increased, and now again a lot of people will not fall into this bracket and they'll not be able to avail the benefits of food coupons that were being given. So ultimately what is happening? Tax reduction has been done, but social sector welfare spending has been reduced, and because of the tax reduction, the massive tax reduction, the fiscal burden of US government is going to go up. In a way to compensate for that fiscal burden, it has decided to lower down the social sector spending, the welfare sector spending, so the higher income people are not going to be affected by this a lot, but the vulnerable section of the society is going to be affected the most. And if we talk about the political context here, so because of this controversial nature of the bill, it did not win by a clear majority. So what happened? Even at Senate, there was a tie, like a 50-50 between the Republicans and Democrats. So Vice President J.D. Vance, he cast his vote, and naturally his vote was in favor of Trump's bill. So this bill was passed in the Senate by a very close win, by a very close majority of 51-50. This tells us how controversial this bill is and what kind of a political fallout we can see even within the Republican Party, because a lot of people within the party itself are also not in the favor of this bill. In fact, in the House of Representatives also, there was not a clear majority. It was a very close tie of 214 to 218 people. So as many people are in the favor of the bill, approximately the same number of people are also in the opposition of the bill. This tells us that politically also this act is very controversial. And if we talk about the social and economic impact, so number one, the inequality here, inequality is going to increase, because we just saw that the wealthy section of the society, it is going to benefit the most, versus the lower income people, the middle income people are not going to benefit as much because the tax benefits are not applicable on them, and they're also losing their health care, their medical insurance. So these things are not going to sit well with the vulnerable section, and health care is going to go down. Loss of medical benefits. Immigrants are going to suffer a lot. Immigrants are going to suffer a lot because of the huge deportation plans that the US government has, and the US government is also planning on increasing the immigration fees, the asylum fees, the H1 visa fees. So it will be difficult for people to gain green card, to get work visa over there. So these things are also going to be challenging for our immigrants. So social and economic impact of this bill are not great, but if we talk about the relevance for India, so one thing that's happened is that the remittance tax has been reduced. So earlier this remittance tax used to be somewhere around 5%, which has now been reduced to 1%. So all the Indians, like anybody basically, anybody who's a foreigner who's working there in America, when they send money back to their home country, that becomes a remittance, and the remittance tax has now been reduced to 1%. Then political instability in the US has been exposed. We now know that a lot of people within Trump's party are also not favoring this bill, which tells us that there is some sort of a disagreement in the party itself. Impact on Indian students and H1B visa holders is also not great, because the fees has increased, the student fees has increased, the immigration fees has increased, asylum fees has increased. There are plans on making deportation very easy. So deportation can take place even without court's trial. So these things are telling us how important deportation is for Trump right now. There are climate consequences, because we just saw that the Greenhouse Climate Fund has been shut down. EV subsidies have been reduced. They have in fact been eliminated. So these things also tell us that globally also climate change is not a concern for America, and the global climate consequences are going to be bad. So what is the way forward here? Way forward right now is that America is definitely going to face legal challenges from immigrants and The Medicaid schemes. So people who were earlier able to get health insurance are not going to get it now. There will be rebellions, there will be petitions that will be filed by the immigrants, by these Medicaid workers. So this is something that US will have to deal with. Then implementation challenges are also going to be there. We'll have to see how fast can departments roll out these changes, and that is also going to shape public reaction. And political fallout will have to be balanced because the political instability has been exposed to the world. So this will have to be balanced. Because of this instability, global investor confidence is also going to be reduced. Investors will have lesser confidence in investing in the US markets because they know that the situation is volatile in the US. So that was all for today's video. I hope you found the discussion helpful. Now let us look at a practice question for prelims. Consider the following statements regarding the One Big Beautiful Bill passed in the United States. 1. It introduces stricter work requirements for beneficiaries under the Supplemented Nutrition Assistance Program or SNAP. 2. The bill expands clean energy tax credits for consumers and businesses. 3. It includes provisions to fund mass deportation operations and increases border security measures. Which of the statements is or are correct? A. 1 and 2 only. B. 3 only. C. 1 and 3 only. D. 2 only. Please provide your answers in the comment section, and thank you for watching the video.
For more informative content, like, share and subscribe, and do not forget to press the bell icon to get the notifications.